What if I told you the US dollar, the very thing that has held global power for decades, could be crashing, and no one's talking about it? No, this isn't some far-off prediction from a doomsday theorist. This is happening right now. The US dollar has long been the king of currencies, the backbone of the world economy. But that's starting to change, and you, yes, you could feel the impact more than anyone else. You're probably thinking, how could something like that even happen? After all, the US dollar has been the global reserve currency for so long. How could it just lose its power? But here's the shocking truth. The global financial system is shifting, and the US dollar is losing its grip. What does this mean for you? Well, it means the next economic crisis might be closer than you think, and this time, it could begin with the collapse of the US dollar. Stick with me because what I'm about to tell you could change how you view money, investments, and your savings. Let's take a step back. For decades, the US dollar has been the backbone of the global economy. It's been the reserve currency, the one that nearly every country holds in their central banks, and the one that oil is traded in. Countries have hoarded dollars, thinking they're the safest bet, the gold standard. But right now, there's a storm brewing, a global storm, and it could be the end of an era. So, how did we get here? The truth is, the US dollar isn't as powerful as it once was. With all the debt, the printing of money, and the global rise of alternative currencies, the dollar's dominance is being challenged. Countries that once relied on the US dollar are now diversifying their reserves, moving into other currencies like the euro, the yuan, and even cryptocurrencies. But why? Let's dive deeper. You've probably heard the term, the dollar is losing its power. But what does that really mean? For starters, the US government has been printing money like there's no tomorrow. In an attempt to keep the economy moving, they've been flooding the market with cash to pay off debts and prop up industries. But here's the catch. Money doesn't just grow on trees. The more money that's printed, the less valuable it becomes. Inflation is the first sign of this. In the past few years, we've seen a spike in inflation that's hit people in their pockets. Food, gas, even everyday goods are getting more expensive. Why? Because the value of the dollar is shrinking. But that's not all. The US national debt is now over $31 trillion. That's right, trillion. And it's growing faster than anyone can keep up with. At this rate, the US dollar can't keep up with global demands. The more debt we incur, the weaker the dollar gets. And this starts affecting everything from global trade to interest rates to your personal savings. But the US dollar isn't the only currency facing challenges. China, the second largest economy in the world, is positioning itself to dominate the global financial system. They're creating their own digital currency, the digital yuan, and this could undermine the dollar's global influence. But it's not just China. Russia, India, and other emerging economies are starting to move away from the dollar and are now trading in other currencies, especially for oil and gold. Let's talk about the competition. China, the world's second largest economy, is making a major move with the digital yuan, a government-backed digital currency that could become the new global standard. In fact, China is already testing the digital yuan in several cities, and it's getting positive feedback. If this currency catches on, countries will start dumping the dollar in favor of the yuan. But that's not all. Russia is cutting deals with countries like India, Brazil, and even Iran, where they are bypassing the US dollar and using their local currencies to settle trade. This is a huge blow to the dollar's dominance in international trade. When other countries stop using the dollar for transactions, the US dollar's value will begin to plummet. This is already happening in some countries, but if this trend grows, it could spell disaster for the US economy. And then there's the rise of cryptocurrencies. Digital currencies like Bitcoin and Ethereum are gaining traction as an alternative to traditional currencies. And the more countries and investors turn to these assets, the less they'll rely on the dollar. In fact, Bitcoin's rise has already shown us that the future of money could be completely decentralized and the dollar won't be able to keep up. So, how does this affect you? Well, the truth is, your savings are at risk. With inflation eating away at your money and the dollar losing its power, the value of your savings and investments is going to decline. Imagine this. If the US dollar loses its global dominance, it will be harder to trade goods, buy oil, and travel internationally without being hit with more fees and exchange rate issues. This doesn't just mean higher prices at the grocery store. It means global instability and a collapse of purchasing power for the average American. The US could experience hyperinflation, making things like housing, gas, and food unaffordable for millions of people. Your money could lose its value overnight, but it's not just the US that will suffer. If the US dollar collapses, the entire global economy could be thrown into chaos. Countries that rely on the dollar as the reserve currency will be forced to scramble for alternatives. Global markets will plunge into a deep recession as everyone tries to figure out how to replace the dollar. Stock markets will crash. Bonds will lose their value. Commodities like oil, gold, and wheat could soar to unprecedented prices. As the dollar falls, countries will rush to hoard assets like gold and other hard assets to preserve wealth. China is already stockpiling gold to hedge against a declining dollar. And while some might turn to Bitcoin, there's no telling whether digital currencies will be enough to fill the gap. The world could be in for a massive economic reset, and no one knows what the new financial order will look like. So, what can we do about it? It's time to diversify. Don't put all your eggs in one basket. Gold, cryptocurrencies, and foreign assets could be a safe haven as the dollar's value continues to drop. If you're heavily invested in the stock market or real estate, now might be the time to start thinking about alternative investments. Another critical move: pay down debt. The more debt you carry, the more you're going to feel the effects of inflation and a weakened dollar. Start thinking about your long-term financial security and prepare for the storm that could hit in the next few years. But most importantly, stay informed. The world is changing and the financial system is shifting. If the US dollar crashes, we need to be ready. The time to act is now, not when it's too late. The US dollar may be on its way out, but it doesn't have to mean the end of the world. It could be the start of a new financial era, one where we embrace change, redefine money, and adapt to new systems. Will we continue down the same path of currency wars and inflation, or will we find a new way forward? The world's financial future is in our hands. The question is, are you ready for it? This is Mystery Finance. Stay curious, stay informed, and as always, stay ahead of the curve.